And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another incredible installment of Cowboy State Politics Live from very high above all the puerile and vacuous forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly and permanently ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Tuesday. And I'm so happy that I could be with you behind the microphone today. Again, I don't exactly know how long we're going to shoot for today. I'm still feeling a little bit sore inside the mouth, but I'm getting better every single day. So you'll just kind of have to give me a little grace if I sound like Sleepy Joe mumbling and bumbling my way through it. It's not intentional, and I'm not out of my mind like the commander-in-chief is, or whomever the commander-in-chief thinks he is. In any case, it is, let's see here, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so 4 days until our wedding. So I'm getting excited about that. Absolutely. Going to be a fantastic time, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. I'm thinking on the podcast, maybe for Saturday, we'll prepare an episode, and I'll get the lovely Christine to sit in with me, and we'll talk about the wedding and everything we're going to do. And we've got kind of a fun idea planned for our honeymoon. Now we're just going to take an adventure. That's what she and I love to do, is just kind of set out and, go find out what we're going to get ourselves into. I don't know if you watched the RNC convention or what happened yesterday during the convention, but a couple of things popped out to me. First, that when Donald Trump walked in, it was very different. Not bad, just different. And you could tell that the weight of the moment had landed on him. You could tell that he realized less than a week ago that he almost died, that he was almost the victim of an assassination. You could tell that with him. The other thing I noticed is that when he walked in, there were several very big guys walking in with him. A very different Secret Service detail than he had on Saturday. There were no more DEI hires, and I'd kind of like to talk about that for just a second. In a lot of the videos, there was two ladies, and I don't know if they were DEI hires or if they were FBI. During the morning show, Joey and I talked about how a lot of the people on that detail were not part of President Trump's security force. In fact, they were people from other agencies, other branches of the government. So we don't even know if they were familiar with Trump or anything, but they were there. One of the videos shows one of those female FBI agents, we're assuming it's an FBI agent, having difficulty putting her gun in her holster. Now, I mean, I don't want to make too much out of that, but you're the Secret Service or the FBI, and you should be pretty familiar with firearms. And it would seem to me that that wouldn't be that difficult. Secondly, there was a picture of one of them appearing to hide behind all of the other agents. Now, I don't know if that was just a picture that was taken in a moment. A lot of times you can get some pretty crazy pictures if you just snap a whole bunch of them of people. I've got several of them from the legislature that make some of these people look like complete morons. Most of them, a lot of them are. Make no mistake about that. But I don't know if it's just a random picture that was grabbed, or if that individual was actually hiding behind the other agents and the president. I guess that sort of stuff is going to come out in the wash. It's already starting to hit Congress. There are calls for hearings. I've got an article in the stack of stuff about the lady in charge of the Secret Service and how she was actually put there by Jill Biden, perhaps one of the people who really is running the country. Who knows if she actually is or not, but anyway, very much could have been another DEI hire. And let's just talk about that for a minute. What does that mean? I see that comment on Facebook and other social media outlets all the time, but diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that literally means hiring people based on, their superficial characteristics. Are they a man? Are they a woman? Are they black? Are they white? Are they Hispanic? None of the things that actually make you who you are. You could be a man or a woman and be a good FBI agent or Secret Service agent, or you could be a crappy one. It doesn't have anything to do with your male or female. So, diversity, equity, and inclusion is nothing that is based on meritocracy. Rather, it's something that is just on your essential characteristics. And everything else in the world, in the private sector anyway, works on meritocracy. That is, you get what you put into it. You get a raise based on how valuable you are to your employer, not because you're a female or you're big or small, but because of how valuable you are, the skills that you learn, the more money that you make your employer. I used to work for this Democrat over in Virginia quite a while ago. Major Democrat. He was actually friends with Barack Obama. Yeah, I know. Hey, it paid the bills. Okay, don't get on my back about that. But he liked to give out these bonuses for the length of time that you had been with the company. Well, I think that's of some value. I was always kind of against it. I was like, if you want to give them $100 or $200, fine, great. But if you're going to give a bonus or a raise, it shouldn't be based on how long you're somewhere. It should be based on your merit, how good of a job you're doing, how valuable of an employee you actually are. Of course, I always got overruled on that. But think about it, right? Just because you're in one position for an extraordinarily long length of time doesn't mean you're more valuable. In fact, it could mean exactly the opposite, that you are a less valuable employee, that you haven't progressed, that you haven't learned more, that you haven't gained more skills, that you haven't made more value for the company. I mean, that's the only reason why I would give a raise to somebody, is if you actually made more money. I mean, one of the reasons why I don't have employees here at Cowboy State Politics, well, there's a lot of them. One of them is that I can't afford an employee. No, it's not that I couldn't use one. Oh boy, man, if you talk about somebody that wanted to research for me, I could set them up every single day, tracking down a whole bunch of stuff. But my company does not have enough value to support an employee. Now, if there was a situation where I had an employee that was generating their own revenue, you'd bet I'd hire him in a heartbeat. But we're not there yet. And that's how business is supposed to work, that you don't add more overhead when you're not getting more value. So go back to DEI for a minute. So if you hire people based on their gender or their color of their skin or the color of their eyes or the length of their hair or whatever, you're actually only adding overhead. That is, you're not adding anything to the bottom line of your company. Nothing that generates value, nothing that creates more money, that allows you to buy more stuff, invest in your company, and build it up. None of that. It's just overhead. In other words, it's cost. So the only place that DEI works is if you're not using your own money, if you're using money that is paid for by other people, that is taxpayers. When taxpayers are footing the bill, You can afford to do all that sort of stuff because you don't have to worry about the money that's coming in. Heck no, it's always going to be there. Let me give you a great example. And I spoke about this a little bit during the morning show. And you know what? Actually, before I get into this, because this is going to take a while for me to go through, let's go ahead and take a quick break. And then we'll come back to it and I'll tell you about the school board meeting that I was at last night. But first, an absolutely outrageous profit timeout. You can listen to Cowboy State Politics live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. on the Independence Network. You're not going to find a better source of news, entertainment, and commentary than on Cowboy State Politics Live. You know, the program you're listening to right now. And frankly, why would you want to look anywhere else anyway? Let's be honest, only a liberal redcoat commie would do that. And if you want to listen to my podcast, you can find it at cowboystatepolitics.com or anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles that I might bring up during the course of a program. If your name is Sleepy Joe Biden and you can't remember if you put socks on this morning or not, well, I can't really help you with that, but I can definitely tell you why you should have never ran for president of the United States. And now, back to the program. Welcome back to the program. David Iverson, Cowboy State Politics Live, mumbling and slurring and bumbling my way through the program. Actually, I'm doing pretty good. I'm feeling a lot better. Had some major dental surgery done, and I'm recovering, and I'm just happy that I'm finally able to sit down here and talk to you every day, even as short of a program as it's going to be. But anyway, happy to be here. I'm happy that you came along with me. I have to tell you that you guys have no idea how much this audience means to me. That I can get up every day and sit down behind my microphone and just talk to you, and know that I'll get a response. And let me tell you another thing that really really trips my trigger. Of course, I'm a conservative. I've got the loudest Cowboy State Politics is the most listened to program in Wyoming, or podcast anyway. And so I take a lot of flack from the left. And at first, it really used to bother me. I used to be on social media all the time trying to fend off a lot of these leftists. Interestingly enough, a lot of the attacks came from people that claim to be conservative. That's another story. But one cool thing that this audience does is most of the time, I don't even have to respond to these fools on social media. My audience does it for me. And I'm telling you, I don't respond all that often because I want to let you use your own facts and data and research and all the things that we've learned on the program. Every once in a while, I'll chime in, but I really get a charge out of this audience and how they handle all the uneducated and ignorant fools on social media. It's a blessing to me, and I am excited, and I'm truly grateful that you guys are a part of it. So it's absolutely amazing. If you're watching the Ditto Cam, you can see one of the studio dogs going around the studio. I don't know if I've talked about this or not, but I've got two dogs that hang out in the studio. One of them is named Hope, and the other one is named Maisie. And they think that the studio belongs to them. So on occasion on the Ditto Cam, you'll see them kind of wandering around, but they're just checking on things, making sure I'm doing the program right. So I went to a school board meeting last night at the Sheridan County School District number 2. And I need to give you a little background here. I haven't been to one of their school meetings in a couple of years. And the last one I attended, let's see here. No, actually, it wasn't the last one. It was the second to last one I attended. It was about the mask policy. And there was a whole bunch of people in there. The room was packed, and there was a lot of people from the Sheridan community there, some college professors explaining how bad all of these masks are and what a terrible idea it is. And I mean, it was a really good discussion. And then all of a sudden, the superintendent, his name is Scott Stultz. He's an idiot. He stood up and he goes, "Well, we just wanted to get your input. Well, we've really already made our decision. We're gonna go ahead with the mandate." Uh-huh. Great. And that kind of riled up the crowd, but nobody got loud, nobody got angry, nobody started throwing things, nobody was violent, nobody threatened anybody. And then one of the members of the board of trustees stood up and he said, "Well, if you'll notice, there's a reason why we have the police here. And we're just going to go ahead and clear the room right now." So, second to last time I was there, got taken out of the room by the police. That was fantastic. Thank you, Sheridan County School District number 2 trustees. The last time I was there was over the porn book controversy, which is still going on, by the way. In that one, a dad got up and started reading from one of these pornographic books, and the board chairman stopped him. The chairman's name is Shane Rader. I've got so much more about that guy that's going to be coming on Cowboy State Politics. I cannot wait to play you the audio from that guy. Anyway, he says, "Well, no, you got to stop reading that book. That's inappropriate." And of course, the dad says, "No, hold on a minute. If this is inappropriate for a room full of adults, how is it appropriate for a school library?" And of course, they voted not to do anything with it. So anyway, last night I showed up because it was a budget discussion. Now, the budget for Sheridan County School District number 2 is $54 million. I'll say that again. $54 million. That's way more than the budgets of many, many, many Wyoming towns. Now, think about that. Towns have to have police and fire and water and and maintenance and all of that stuff. And one school district of 3 in Sheridan is $54 million. Now, here's the thing that got me. Last night was the first time that they had introduced a budget. Now, cities and towns and other municipalities, they have to have 3 readings of a budget or an ordinance. I haven't looked up the statute yet to see if school boards have to do that. But anyway, they introduced it last night. And me and the one investigator I have for Cowboy State Politics quickly went online and found the budget, so-called budget in air quotes, that they had posted for the public to view. It was posted yesterday morning. Now, I don't know what time. I'm assuming open of business, so we'll just say 8 o'clock, give them the benefit of the doubt. And it wasn't the budget. It was a PowerPoint presentation of all of their accounts. It didn't really say what we're spending on football pads or what we're paying the janitor. Nope. It was just, here's the money we have in accounts. So then they proceed to go through the budget, what they called the budget, which was only the PowerPoint presentation. And then they really didn't discuss it at all, and then passed it with no public comment, with no chance for the public to view it, to go through it, no chance for the media. Not that they would here in Sheridan. Sheridan media and the Sheridan press aren't going to go through the budget and pick it line by line. They're not going to do that. I'm going to do some of that. In fact, let me get to that here in just a second. So anyway, no public comment whatsoever, no input. They only had one meeting, and the public and the media could only look at that, what they were calling the budget, for 10 hours. So there was absolutely no public input whatsoever. So they voted on it, and then at the end of the meeting, they opened it up for, what did they call it? Comments from the audience. That's what it said on the agenda. During the budget discussion, there was no call for public comment at all. None. I've got the whole thing recorded, of which, of course, I will play you audio on Cowboy State Politics. And so, I kind of looked around, and the room was pretty much empty. I've got a picture that I'll post on the website when I go with this episode. The room's empty. And so I kind of walked out in the hall and looked up the sign-up sheet for public comment, and there was nobody on it. So I just wrote my name down, and I walked back in there. And when they called me up, I said, "Okay, I just have a couple of questions. First of all, do you realize that you spent more time on a book report?" And I'm not even joking about that, my friends. The Board of Trustees spent more time talking about a book they were reading, and it's something about school administration or something, than they actually did discussing the budget. So I said, do you realize you've just spent more time on your dumb book report than you did discussing the budget? I said, I have two questions. One, when was this budget posted? And two, once you answer that one, number two, how did the media and the public have any time to look through this at all? And then I sat down. Now, of course, at Sheridan County, they have a policy not to respond to questions during public comment. Apparently, they don't want to be held accountable. So this morning, I get a phone call from their business director, a guy named Brandon. He seems very nice. And I'm sure he's just the finance guy, but he asked for a meeting today at 1 o'clock. So I'm going to do that today, ask him some very pointed questions. And I also sent a request for comment to all of the members of the board of trustees. And so they'll either comment or they won't. Regardless, I'm going to play the video and we're going to blow this thing up bigger than anything these people have ever had to deal with, because with $54 million, there's a lot you can hide, my friends. Think about that. If you're spending $54 million and you're not telling the public what you're spending it on, how easy would it be to hide things like, I don't know, maybe rainbow-colored tote bags that happen to be given out during the month of June? Oh, wait, no. That was the Sheridan County Public Health Office that was doing that. How easy is it to hide pornographic books? How easy is it to hide your extensive overhead and administrative costs? By the way, some of those administrative costs, Scott Stoltz, the superintendent of public instruction in Sheridan County School District number 2, he makes in excess of $200,000 a year. That's not all. He has 2 assistant superintendents that make in excess of $100,000 a year. So I don't know about you, but I know of another school district in Wyoming, Natrona County, that has 1 school district, which means they have 1 superintendent, and they don't have 3. And Natrona County is far larger than Sheridan County. So anyway, there's a lot of questions. I'm going to ask this finance guy. I'm going to be really nice to him and get a copy of the budget. And I'm going to show you what they voted on and what you were shown, because the two are very, very, very different, my friends. The other thing that happened, and I know that this is absolutely intentional because I've seen this at the legislature over and over and over, is those folks on the board, they don't like to turn their microphone on. You know why they do that? So you can't hear what they're saying on YouTube. You can't go back and find out what Shane Rader, the chairman, said. You can't go back and find out what Fessler said, or any of them. You can't hear their comments. So we're going to play, hey, this is what you heard on YouTube during their board meeting. This is what they actually said. It's going to be a fantastic episode, my friends. So that's what I was doing last night. Kind of wanted to elaborate a little bit on that. We talked about it a little bit on the morning program, but that's going to be a big story. And the reason I bring it up is the statewide elections, or the state elections, are not the only important ones. The truth is, you are more likely to lose your liberty at the local level than you are at the state or the national level. Because the folks at the local level, they're the ones that make decisions that more directly and quickly impact your life than anything that the state does. These are the local tyrants that pass stupid ordinances. Let me give you an example. A couple of years ago, there was an ordinance proposed by the Sheridan City Council to mandate how often you had to clip your dog's toenails. I'm not even kidding, my friends. There's several Wyoming communities. Buffalo is one of them. They have an ordinance about how tall your grass can be. It's called the nuisance ordinance, telling you what you can do on your own personal property just because of the whim of some tyrannical city council member. So you're very likely to lose your liberty and lose your money at the local level than you are at the state level. And that's why I'm going to focus so much on this school board meeting. One, because it was an absolute travesty. But two, because you need to pay attention to what your local people are doing. The school board. If you want to know why our country is in the crapper the way it is, look at the people that are running it. The products of our education system. And, if they're educated in socialism and mediocrity, it doesn't take that, it's not that big a stretch to find out how they're going to govern later on. And I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but the kids that are in school right now are the ones that are going to be running this country when all of us are old. And if we're not paying attention to how they're being educated, what they're learning, how they're being taught, we are in a world of hurt. My personal opinion is the best thing that you can do for your children is to jerk them out of public school and educate them yourself. Absolutely. That way, you know what they're being taught, you know what the curriculum is, and you can actually make sure that they learn the things that they're supposed to learn. Because in Wyoming, only 40% of graduating eighth graders, I don't know if they still have eighth grade graduation or not, but in Wyoming, only 40% of eighth graders read at a proficient level. That's what I said, my friends, 40%. So our entire education budget, the gigantic amount of money that we spend, by the way, education in Wyoming is about a third of the entire budget in Wyoming, produces people that, frankly, don't know how to read. Not that long ago, I went over to Sheridan College and just asked the admissions department. I'm like, so, just ballpark it for me. How many incoming freshmen do you have that have to take remedial courses in math and English and those sorts of classes? And they told me, easy, about 70%. Holy crap, my friends. Almost 3/4 of graduating seniors have to take remedial courses. So the question is, well, why? And I've done a number of interviews of people running for state office, the state legislature, and one of the questions that I have asked every single one of them, because I truly think it's an important one, is, all right, so we've got all these problems with education. Why the heck can't we teach our kids to read? Think about that, right? That's a pretty easy thing to do. Teach your kids how to read. Why, when we spend almost more money than any other state per student, can we not teach our kids to read? And if you're listening and you want to know how your local school district is doing that, go to the school board meeting and just flat ask them, what are the student outcomes? How proficient are they in English and in math and in science and in all of those things? And here's why I bring it up, because the vast majority of the school board meeting last night was basically a giant mutual appreciation society. Look at how great we are. Look at the great job we're doing. And then they say, oh, yeah, we're going to pass a budget of $54 million without any comment whatsoever because we're so great. Well, I got news for the Sheridan County School District number 2. There's going to be a giant episode about them, and they're not going to like it very much. But transparency, the best disinfectant, my friends, is the direct sunlight of transparency, showing you what exactly is happening with your public officials. And it's far too often that we don't get that. So anyway, we're going to do that. And I'm excited to tell you about it because I think it's absolutely essential. Well, we're almost at the bottom of the hour, and I'm feeling pretty good. So let's go ahead and take another break, and then we'll be back.
Pray help from above, because in the midnight hour, she cried more. With a rebel yell, she cried more. In the midnight hour, babe, more. With a rebel yell, more.
It's spring in the Cowboy State, or as Albert Sommers likes to say, spring-ish. Time to get the motorcycle out of the garage, time to go up the mountain, time to get outside and tromp around. And when you're doing that, you still want to make sure that you take care of your feet. The best way that you can do that is order a pair of Kenai boot socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. I know. Your mama always told you that wool socks are only to be worn during the winter. But times have changed, my friends. The Kenai boot socks from the Buffalo Wool Company will not only keep your feet nice and toasty warm, they'll keep them cool and dry in the summer. Trust me, these are the most incredible socks that you're ever going to put on your feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. You're definitely not going to be disappointed. Wyoming is one of the most sought-after places to live. There's a lot of people that want to move to our great state. And if you're thinking about selling your house to one of them, you need a real estate agent that you can trust. That agent is Rebecca Bextel at Compass Real Estate. She's lived in Jackson for almost 20 years and has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market. Last year, she sold almost $25 million worth of property. So if you're thinking of buying or selling, give Rebecca a call. Her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Watch out. Cowboy State Politics is only going to get stronger. The Independence Network is only going to continue to expand, far bigger than any of our competition ever thought we would. Stay tuned to the Independence Network. You'll hear great voices like me on Cowboy State Politics, Joey Correnti from Just Blame Joey, Ken Pendergrant for the Ramble Room, Wide Right Turn, the Hair Affair when we finally get done with the wedding and Christine gets some time to do an episode. So we got a lot of great stuff coming on the Independence Network. Make sure that you stay tuned and listen to all of it. Just keep it playing in the background, man. It's way better than any radio you're going to get locally. Also, we have done a ton of interviews, way more than any media outlet has done. And I don't think that any media outlet has put together the interviews that the Independence Network has. I know that we're well over 60. I know that Joey is working on his second round of interviews, and I'm a little bit more selective. I just, whomever I want to talk to, I send them an invite, and it's not necessarily open to anyone, though. If you are a candidate and you want to be on Cowboy State Politics, well, all you got to do is send me an email, and we'll do that. The address is david@cowboystatepolitics.com, or you can hit me up on social media. I'm pretty easy to find. Facebook, Twitter, there's a whole bunch of them. So just hit me up anytime you want. Well, I suppose we should probably get to some of the news since I am feeling pretty good. Who knows? We might even be able to pull off a full hour today. That would be amazing. I have been able to do that for about a week and a half, so I'm feeling pretty good. Well, Biden is continuing to try to legitimize his candidacy. I think you've seen that all over the news. Well, he did another interview with Lester Holt. And he was very combative with NBC. And Lester Holt, to his credit, was asking what I think are some pretty pointed questions. And, all these media outlets, they've actually they have to do their job now. They can't sit back and try to protect the president when the entire world knows that he's off his rocker, out of his mind, and doesn't need to be anywhere near the nuclear football. Which brings up a question. Who is really in charge of the nuclear football? We need to know that, because if it's a crazy dude, oh boy, do we have problems. But anyway, so let's see here. Where did I get this from? I think this came from the New York Post. Let me just read the couple opening paragraphs to you. And I quote, President Biden repeatedly scolded NBC anchor Lester Holt in an interview Monday, exclaiming at one point, "What's with you guys? Come on, man," as he defended his criticism of Donald Trump, despite calling on Americans to, quote, lower the temperature after the assassination attempt on the former president Saturday. The 81-year-old president lashed out when Holt pressed him on his disastrous debate performance and bristled when the journalist asked him about Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance. Quote, "Are you seeing what viewers saw? Which was moments of frankly that you appeared to be confused?" Holt asked the president, which is an astonishing question from NBC News, but they asked it. So, credit where credit is due, even if they're entirely late to the game. Here's how Biden responded. Quote, "Lester, look, why don't you guys ever talk about the 18 or 28 lies that Trump told? Where were you on this? Why didn't the press ever talk about that? 28 times. It's confirmed that he lied in that debate." Well, I don't know who confirmed that he lied. I watched the entire thing. Maybe there were some exaggerations, but I didn't see anything where he out and out lied. But the real question is, how many times did Joe Biden lie? Oh man, I lost count, and I wouldn't even know where to start without just playing the entire debate beginning to end, and nobody wants to hear that thing again. But Joe Biden being combative, and I don't know if you know this or not, but if you've had a relative or a friend or known somebody that's going through dementia, that's one of the symptoms, right? When they get pressed, they get combative because it's frustrating. They can't remember what the heck they were going to say, and they get confused. And one of the automatic responses is to get combative and to get downright angry. That happened with my grandpa Dave. He could be completely lucid, and then when he got confused, well, he would get angry. And sometimes it was kind of violent and really, really sad. But this is what our president is going through. Now, let me play you a little bit of what he told Lester Holt. There's a whole bunch more of this. He's going to talk about the Secret Service in another soundbite, but let's first listen to how he dealt with Lester Holt.
Lester, look, why don't you guys ever talk about the 18 to 28 lies he told? Where are you on this? Why didn't the press ever talk about that? 28 times it's confirmed he lied in that debate. Seriously, you won't answer the question, but why didn't the press talk about all the lies he told?
Well,
I didn't know anything about that.
We have reported many of the issues that came up during that debate.
No, you haven't. If you go back and listen to the things J.D. Vance said about Trump.
Well, he said some things about you, yeah.
Well, he said something about me, but see what he said about Trump. What's with you guys? Come on, man.
Come on, man. What's with you guys? Why don't you ever talk about that other stuff? You see, what you're seeing is Biden is used to the press being deferential to Joe Biden, being almost, I don't know what you call it, but almost being, I don't know, kowtowing to them. So I don't know what Joe Biden's thinking here. But that's what he said to Lester Holt. Now, here's the really interesting soundbite when he was talking about the Secret Service. Check this out.
I feel safe with the Secret Service, but look, and you saw what we did see was the Secret Service who responded risked their lives in responding. They're ready to give their lives to the president. The question is, should they have anticipated what happened? Should they have done what they needed to do to prevent this from happening? That's a question that's an open question.
Is it acceptable that you have still not heard, at least publicly, from the Secret Service director?
Well, I've heard from them.
But have you heard from her publicly?
Publicly, I've sat down in a situation room downstairs. The Secret Service, the FBI, the national security agencies, the Homeland Security, all the major elements.
Okay, so I think they did a fantastic job. Now, there was one comment in there, and I'm going to play it for you again because I really want you to hear it. Now, we're talking about an assassination attempt on a former and probably future president. This is a really big deal, my friends. We don't have a lot of these in American history. Thankfully, thank God that we don't. And let me just take a second and talk about my position on all of this. I was one of the people that said, please, God, protect Barack Obama. Because if something would have happened to him, it would have plunged this country into chaos. We cannot have political assassinations in this country. It completely destabilizes everything. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. And, one of the things I said at church on Sunday was that, we need to pray for President Trump and his family. But the other people we need to pray for are President Biden, that nothing happens to him. You know, we may make a lot of political arguments back and forth how terrible he is all the time on this program. I'm playing sound bites of how crazy the guy is, the crazy statements he's making. But really, you need to pray for him because this is the president of the United States. So let's listen to what he says about the Secret Service one more time.
I feel safe with the Secret Service, but look, and you saw what we did see was the Secret Service who responded risked their lives in responding. They're ready to give their lives to the president. The question is, should they have anticipated what happened? Or should they have done what they needed to do to prevent?
The question is, should they have anticipated? Should they have done what they needed to do? Now, word choice is very important, my friends.
2 + 2 is 4, not 5 if you want it to be 5. And this is not to be discriminatory. This is to stand up for language. Words mean things.
Words mean things, and word choice is very, very important, even for an old crazy guy that doesn't know what the heck he is talking about. Should they have done that? Should they have anticipated this? Should they have risked their lives? The answer to all of that is absolutely, without a doubt, yes. So for the president of the United States, in a nationally televised interview, to question, well, you know, maybe they shouldn't have done that. I mean, absolutely shocking. That just tells you exactly where Joe Biden is at. And quite frankly, like I said, even people with dementia have moments of clarity. And so to even utter that, it absolutely blows my mind, my friends. Just completely shocking. Let's go ahead and take our last break, and then we'll come back and finish up the program.
By the record machine, I knew he must have been about 17. He was going strong, playing my favorite song, and I could tell it would be long that he was with me, yeah, me. And I could tell it would be long that he was with me, yeah, me. Singing, I love rock and roll.
You are listening to Cowboy State Politics Live on the Independence Network. You're not going to find a selection of better news, entertainment, and commentary than right here on the Independence Network, with great voices like Joey Carenti from Just Blame Joey, Ken Pendergraft from The Ramble-Roon, Tom Kelly from Wide Right Turn, and the lovely Christine from The Hair Affair. And of course, my program, Cowboy State Politics, Wyoming's most listened to political program. Also, don't forget to check out the articles section at the website, independencenetwork.us. It's loaded with op-eds, commentary, and news from all around the Cowboy State. You can listen to the Cowboy State Politics podcast anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest place is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles that I might bring up during the course of a program. That way, if your name is Joe Biden and you can't remember if you had your pudding today, well, I probably can't help you with that, but I can definitely tell you why you should have never ran for president. And now, back to our program.
I remember I was 8 years old with a blank tape waiting by the radio. Come on, man, play it back in black. I want to play it back on repeat. I remember Panama City, long nights with a girl named Christy. She took me down to the Paradise City, then up on Cripple Creek. Still something about a guitar cranked up, head banging to the beat of the bass drum. Still something about a sold-out show in the second row with your girl on your shoulder. Still something about raising a cold beer when the lights go soul to Abbey Road, sweet child to sweet home. Still something about rock and roll, rock and roll. Still something about rock and roll, rock and roll. Rock and roll. I saw a journey in the big Coliseum. No dancing, no lip syncing. I tell you this, don't fight the feeling.
Welcome back to the program. David Iverson, Cowboy State Politics Live, documented to be almost always right. Just about 99% of the time. You know, that's a record that the mainstream media shouldn't even try to come close to because, frankly, they can't and they don't want to. Rather, they just want to tell you a whole bunch of bull crap and hope you'll believe it. You won't get that here at Cowboy State Politics. Verified facts and data, letting you listen to exactly what they say, showing you that they're probably lying to you, just like the Sheridan County School Board. Anyway, moving on. I don't know if you've heard about this or not, but Project 2025. The Democrats are trying to play this up as some sort of fascistic authoritarian move by the Heritage Foundation to fundamentally transform this country and destroy every semblance of democracy that we actually have. Not so much, really. The Heritage Foundation is one of the foremost defenders of American liberty. They try to educate American citizens on what the Constitution is, what it actually says, what it actually means. And they do this every year. It just so happens that this year they've gone, a little bit more in depth, and really it's their roadmap for liberty and smaller government and reduced spending and all of those conservative ideas that everything at Cowboy State Politics stands for. Well, the Democrats are trying to paint it as some sort of cabal-induced plan to destabilize their democracy. Now, again, every time you hear them say our democracy, what they really mean is what they want to institute in this country. They want a democracy, which, of course, is something that our country was not set up to be a democracy. Thomas Jefferson called democracy the only thing it is an example of bad government. A lot of people point to the democracy in Athens and how great that was. Well, the truth is, if you're an honest historian, you're going to say that was an absolute disaster because it was. It led to authoritarian emperors and dictators that killed a bunch of people. And that's how democracy always ends because, by definition, it is mob rule. And that's what because they knew the dangers of mob rule. They specifically set up a constitutional representative republic to prevent against mob rule because they knew that the emotions and that the passions of a crowd can be easily inflamed to go one way or another. And one of the things that happened in Athens is this whole idea of what was called ostracism, that if you were an enemy of the republic and that you just wouldn't toe the line and you committed crimes, you would be ostracized, which meant you were kicked out of Athens. And it was usually for a length of time, 5 years or 10 years or 25 years or whatever. And you couldn't come back. You couldn't even be part. You were no longer a citizen. And that quickly changed to, let's get rid of our political enemies. Everybody's familiar with the term rhetoric. Well, the rhetoricians in Athens were the folks who were skilled orators who could convince the crowd, that being all the people in the Senate, to do whatever they wanted because the passions of a crowd can be inflamed pretty easily. That's one of the reasons why we have what are called the riot acts, which you cannot incite a riot, even though you have the freedom of speech. It's absolutely illegal to incite a riot. That's what they were trying to go after President Trump for on January 6th, which he didn't do, obviously, but they tried to twist his words. So we don't live in a democracy, and anybody that says, well, our democracy is in danger, it's their conception of what they want to turn our country into. That is a threat to their idea of what this government should be. So the Heritage Foundation, every election, they come out with their, let's see if I can find the term here. I'll find it when we get down into the article. But basically, it's a prescription of how they think that the country ought to go, how it ought to be managed, how it ought to be governed. And it's just a white paper that is a policy prescription. Now, before the break, I was going to print out the whole thing so I could post it on the website. It's actually pretty long, so I didn't want to print the whole thing out. I didn't have time to before the program. But this comes to us from The Blaze. And the article is entitled Fear-Mongering Frenzy Fuels Hysteria Over Project 2025. And I quote, as the country reels from the attempt on Donald Trump's life and Joe Biden's cognitive decline continues to cause fallout, the Democrats and the media have staked their hopes on salvaging the 2024 presidential election by branding the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 as a roadmap to, quote, fascism and a grave, here it is, threat to democracy. This manufactured hysteria has succeeded in making the report radioactive, causing Republicans, conservatives, and even Trump himself to distance themselves from it. The media is great at crafting narratives and making you believe what they want you to believe, which is exactly what this whole thing is about. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Something that Republicans and conservatives are all too familiar with. They constantly allow their political opponents to control the narrative and fall into the same trap. Issue a white paper, expect people to find, read, and understand it, and then let the left cherry pick and distort its contents to fit their agenda, painting Republicans and conservatives as radical extremists. I'm sure that you've been called that a time or two. Instead of proactively marketing the conservative policy agenda to win over the hearts and minds, they react defensively, often too late to counteract the damage that has been done. Unfortunately, it seems that the far left campaign is working. According to a recent survey, albeit from a progressive research group, 4 in 5 respondents have never heard of Project 2025. Nevertheless, okay, so they've never heard about it. And so this progressive group is saying, okay, well, let me tell you what this thing is. Are you in favor of that? So obviously the results of the poll are going to be a little bit negative. Nevertheless, the survey found that 62% of respondents thought that the agenda would negatively impact their family and their country. That's because it was painted about something that it wasn't. Before the broadcast, I was watching the Glenn Beck program, and he had one of the head guys at the Heritage Foundation on, and he went through the list of charges that the left is making on Project 2025, and every single one of them ended up to be not true. Now, here, let's get into the meat of it. Since 1980, the Heritage Foundation has issued its Mandate for Leadership. That's the term I was looking for at the beginning of this segment. In nearly every single presidential election cycle, presenting a conservative policy agenda for a potential Republican administration. Over 350 influential leaders and more than 50 of the nation's leading conservative organizations collaborated to craft Project 2025, and it was released in April of 2023. Yet, over a year later, there has never been a robust PR campaign to familiarize Americans with its content. If people understood the project, they might realize it stands in stark contrast to the portrayals by the Democrats and the media. It serves as the antithesis of authoritarianism. Despite Biden's propaganda, he called it, quote, the biggest attack on our system of government, our personal freedoms, that has ever been proposed in the history of the country. Much of Project 2025 would empower Americans to restore our republic to its original intent. Most notably, it aims to restore individual liberties, reduce federal dependency and overreach, and limit government power to the confines laid out in the Constitution. Of course, the left thinks that this is a threat to their conception of what they think this country ought to be. The biggest target of Project 2025 is the federal bureaucracy. That is, all of the unelected bureaucrats that seem to run our everyday lives. Now, think about this. Let's just use one of my favorite targets, the ATF. They constantly issue laws about firearms, even though the Second Amendment is very, very clear that it shall not be infringed. I don't think you can get much clearer than that. And Congress can't pass any sort of regulations on guns that are meaningful and it shouldn't, by the way. And so the federal bureaucracy, namely the ATF, goes to work crafting rules for you to follow, and rules that prescribe how many guns that you can buy. Lots of different states, California, Illinois, they have all the gun restrictions that you can think of. They're absolutely stupid. They really ought to be called scary looking weapons laws. But anyway, these federal bureaucrats go way outside the confines of the Constitution. And secondly, they go way outside the confines of their power that is delegated to them by Congress. It's only Congress that can pass laws, my friends. And Project 2025 takes aim at that federal bureaucracy. Now, it has grown to unprecedented levels, that is, the bureaucracy, and often overshadows the authority of our elected officials in Congress and the presidency. No one can say with certainty how many duplicative offices and jobs exist at the federal level. Unelected bureaucrats wield significant power over our lives with little to no oversight. The administrative state is a cancer that uses its power to circumvent the Constitution. From spying on and censoring Americans to targeting political opponents, parents at school board meetings, Catholics, our institutions have forfeited America's trust long ago. Project 2025 aims to rectify these abuses through a series of measures, including strengthened checks on agencies that have recently pushed past legal boundaries, such as the FBI and their reliance on their FISA warrants. Think about President Trump, all of the surveillance that you have to deal with each and every day of your personal cell phone and your emails and all of that. That is way beyond the confines of what federal law allows, and way, way, way outside of what the Constitution says these bureaucrats can do. Another way to rein in out of control bureaucracy, which is the one thing that all of the Democrats have right about Project 2025, is they suggest abolishing the Department of Education. Absolutely, we should. It's not authorized by the Constitution, and it's become a giant bureaucracy with little to no oversight whatsoever. The federal government was never supposed to be involved in education. In fact, it was supposed to be handled at the local level. But because we've allowed this giant bureaucracy to exist and to expand and metastasize like the cancer that it is, it filters down to the local level, and you end up having school boards like Sheridan County School District Number 2, passing a budget without letting the public even look at it. Those are the infringements on your liberties, your money, your property, and frankly, your life that Project 2025 is trying to curb. And it's not, it's not a nefarious plan. I guess it's nefarious if you're on the left. If you have some plan to turn this into some sort of socialist anti-utopia, well, then, yeah, it is a threat to your plan. But really, it's a plan to get us back on track with the Constitution, get our country back to a place that our founders had envisioned. And that's why the left is terrified of it. And considering the way I'm pretty sure the election is going to go, they have good reason to think that. Because if the Trump-Vance ticket succeeds, and I think they will in a landslide, you're going to see a lot of these policy prescriptions go forward, and absolutely to the credit of our country and the Constitution, my friends, because that's the one thing that we're supposed to protect. Every elected official, be it from the dog catcher all the way up to Congress and the president, swears an oath to defend the Constitution. And it's those very people, bureaucrats, school boards, all their administrators, everything, that do everything they can to subvert the Constitution. Well, hopefully this election will change that, and I am absolutely in support of Project 2025. And I'll do a deep dive into it so I can give you a fuller account of what it is. Well, we have successfully burned through our busy broadcast hour. I'm excited that I was able to do an hour. Haven't been able to do this for a while, so I am pumped that we got it done. Stay tuned to the Independence Network. Everything that you need to know about the election. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics.